He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.
Saw petrol prices hitting 17.99 Ghana cedis per litre, with diesel not selling at 23 Ghana cedis. These increments are coming at a time when crude oil prices on the world market have remained below 100 US dollars per litre for more than 2 months. However, consumers are expected to pay more for fuel products when they enter fuel pumps. It's a sunny afternoon in Accra, and 42-year-old Sam, a taxi driver, is saddened. According to him, the recent increase in petroleum products is making his business worthless. He fears losing his job should prices increase in the coming days.
First, no matter for a high pass, Ghana. Since you amount 2.52 million, until my business and yet the crowd. Since I'm to trend Ghana. Me poor mania.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.
Thank you very much for joining us on the Mother of All Talk Shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. We are live from the studios of Pan-African Television. We are also live on several affiliates across the country. We are live on Radio Gold. And of course, we are live on social media. Pan-African Television is the page on Facebook. If you go on YouTube, Pan-African TV, just search for Pan-African TV. You can get to watch us there. Thank you for choosing us once again. This week has been quite an interesting week. Last week, on this show, Mr. Pratt set the tone by talking about the kind of things he expected from the address of the president. Well, the president made that address, and we'll talk about it this morning. It's the very first issue for discussion on the show this morning. And then we'll jump into the moves by the minority in Parliament to block that bill, the bill that seeks to make Ghana card the only voter registration document. Simple. Only Ghana card. If you do not have Ghana card, you cannot register to be a voter. The NEC disagrees. They've sent a petition to the Speaker, asking the Speaker to block the bill because it's not in the interest of the voter. We'll talk about that, and then we'll move on to the campuses of the colleges of education. PRINCOF, principals of those colleges, issued a statement. They actually wrote a letter to the Ministry of Education. Their demand is simple. They are asking the permission of the Ministry of Education to allow the students to start fending for themselves, because they have been asking for an increment in the feeding grant, that the amount of money budgeted for feeding per day is not adequate. They are not getting it. The feeding grants have delayed, so they owe a lot of suppliers. The suppliers are not ready to supply food to them anymore. And so they've come to the conclusion that the best way is to allow the students to fend for themselves. And that's the demand they are making on the Education Ministry. We'll end with that particular topic on the show today. And joining me for the discussion this morning is Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr., who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. Of course, we'll get to him on the issue of the president. He has particular expectations that he expressed last week. Whether those expectations are met, we'll be hearing from him. I've heard excepts throughout the week, but we'll hear a bit more extensively on the show today. And then sitting close to him is Aboana. He is a financial analyst. The demand still is that the finance minister should go. In fact, this morning, there's a demonstration ongoing. The demand is that the president should go, vice president should follow, and then a series of other demands are being made. It's called Kumi Preko. Yeah, the same name. And getting closer is Solomon Owusu, who is a member of the MPP's communication team And right on my left is Beatrice, and a private legal practitioner and member of the National Democratic Congress. I nearly put you in the New Patriotic Party. Well, we'll start with the discussion on the president's address. A lot of people expected him to have talked about the finance minister. Actually, the finance minister, as he speaking, he spoke yesterday. He didn't address the issues directly, but this is what he had to say. This is a quote. You have a finance minister who has gone through all the pains and aches, and nobody can really come and say, we don't understand what we are doing. He was addressing members of the Association of Ghana Industries, and he continues on this particular issue because there are other things that he said. Let me assure you all that your best bet is still Ghana. We can do it and we should do it. The question is, what resources do we have and how we're going to deploy them in the nation that we have? And how do we stand firm in very difficult circumstances by being very confident that the nation is purpose for greatness and you are blessed to have the opportunity to lead where we are going. That's what the finance minister said. Well, we'll talk about, let's start with the issue of the president's address and matters arising throughout this week. And I start from my left with lawyer Beatrice. Good morning.
Good morning, Sena. And good morning to our cherished viewers and listeners across the country. Except that I was thinking because it's the president's address, you'll be starting with the MPP communications representative to tell us exactly what the president said. Because on Monday, I had the opportunity to have a bite on the president's address. And I should say that, to borrow the words of the president, his address was a bath of jokes. The president's address basically was trying to tell us that you wanted me to speak. You were complaining about hardship in the system. You were not happy about a lot of things. You wanted me to speak. I have spoken. And so maybe the president was under the impression that because he can't pay the day, we practically shouldn't have expected anything from the president. But I particularly was shocked and worried that in a time such as this, that we are just like Sri Lanka, except that Sri Lanka doesn't have a leader and we have one. In times when we are experiencing what we call the stagflation, there is inflation which does not correspond with growth. In times when food inflation is 122% from January to now, in times when our debt to GDP is 104% projected by the end of 2022, the president would come with some very cogent short to medium and long-term measures to give everybody a certain sense of hope. But what did we see the president do? The president gave us the impression that, you know what, prior to my address on on Thursday, President Mahama had addressed the nation. He has practically addressed majority of the challenges and preferred solution on what to do between the short to medium term. And so in order not to regurgitate what President Mahama had said, I needed to say something. And in saying something, the president never said anything. The president never offered anybody, be it young people, be it players in the financial market, be it old people, pensioners, unemployed people. There was no hope in that speech that you can say that I find myself as a young person in the president's address to the nation. The president practically just came to tell us that me and my men, we have no clue. We have no clue on what to do. And Sena, on a very serious note, I think that all well-meaning Ghanaians, including Solo here this morning, should be very worried about the trajectory of our country, because it is okay that we find ourselves in this economic mess. It could also be okay that things are not going as we expect. And so one will expect that there has to be something that is being done, something in a very responsible manner to salvage the situation. And one would have expected that the fierce urgency of the moment, the excruciating pains associated with the economic hardship, will equally demand a response from leadership, so that for the many who can wait in the short to long term, they can actually wait and see that the measures which have been put in place will be solved. But there is no such measure. And that's where I get scared sometimes for the future of our country for the next 2 years in the hands of President Nana Akufo-Addo. Because, Sena, in the president's speech, the president used almost a page to explain that one of the most critical measures that he, together with his men, he promised us that they have, including all the aspiring presidential candidates of the MPP, when they sat together and they came out to the conclusion they came to is that the Bank of Ghana should buy forex from mining firms in a voluntary manner, so that the wanton depreciation of the cedi that we are experiencing will be curbed. Sena, and when I read that, if you had any background in economics, you should be running. Because you see, time and again, we've all come together that the challenges we are facing in our economy is what we call the fiscal challenge. The fiscal challenge simply has to do with how much government is making and how much government is spending. And so the deficit is the fiscal challenge. And the second is also our debts, that the president, together with his cousin, anytime they borrow, their family make profit. And so they have borrowed, and today as we sit, our public debt stands at 522 billion. So the challenge in the economy is a fiscal challenge. And then when you want to address that fiscal challenge, this government uses a monetary policy to address a fiscal challenge. Where is this done in the world? Solo is even shocked. Where is this done in the world that we have agreed that we have a fiscal challenge of budget expenditure, that the government of Ghana has increased the Office of Government Expenditure from a little over 700 million to a reckless level of 3.1 billion, that the government of Ghana has increased presidential staffers in excess, or almost, in fact, at a point it was about 1,006, that the government of Ghana has borrowed so much with nothing to show. These are the fiscal challenge that the Auditor General report shows that under this government we have in excess of 45 billion going down the drain into pockets of friends and families of this government by way of financial irregularity. That's the challenge, is that they are party here, Sika, and so the little taxes we have been able to gather, it has to be used to satisfy the whims and caprices of members of the NPP government. Those are the challenges. So how do you then come to tell us that these fiscal challenges that we are facing within the macroeconomic space can't be curbed by a monetary challenge? And I got scared that, is it that genuinely the government and the managers of the economy do not understand the situation we are facing, or they are rather assuming that the members of the public do not understand, and so let's say anything to them? Because you see, assuming that monetary policy would in itself be able to solve the fiscal challenge, which is not possible, but assuming that because of our peculiar instance, Ghana stood a chance of using a monetary policy to solve a fiscal policy, I would have been a bit relaxed. But Sena, the measures as announced by this government as a way of salvaging the sinking image of our city was a measure which was announced by the Bank of Ghana on 17th August 2022. In fact, at the Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the Bank of Ghana, when they finished, point 10 of the measures which they took was that the Bank of Ghana was going to buy forex from, or voluntary forex from, the mining companies, so that the profits that these mining companies would have repatriated to their company, the Bank of Ghana will find a way of negotiating with them to retain it. That was announced as far back as 17 August. And so now let me say that at the time that policy was announced, the city was 8 cities by the Bank of Ghana own official figures. After the announcement of that policy and its piloting thereafter, the city is now 14.5. Yesterday, I wanted some dollars. The banker promised me that, oh, the dollar is 14.5. In fact, it was my own MPP friend who told me that, oh, I can get you somebody who gets you dollar. They couldn't bring the dollars. So I don't even know, after you've announced all these policies by the BOG, where the president came to regurgitate, he wasn't even smart about it to even change the wording or even change it a bit. He simply came to regurgitate. After everything, the city is now from 8 cities to 14.5 cities. So it tells you that that measure which the government or the president came to announce to us last Sunday, it didn't work. It didn't work because as at the time, our currency had depreciated by 27%. After the BOG started implementing that measure, our currency depreciated by over 60%. So how do you tell me that if any government genuinely had the heart to change the economic situation, you piloted the policy using the BOG and it rather further sank your currency, and you come to say the same thing to the people as your measure of the solution? How? What happened? What is happening to us? What is happening? Are there no elders in this government who can advise them? Are there no people who use pillow every night and say that something has to be done? What is happening? Something is not adding up because devoid of the politics, the economic hardship is not discriminating. Somebody who is a for more to do more person is asking to do carpooling with me. They practically have parked their car. They cannot afford the fuel. I don't know whether I should allow her to be joining me or not. That is the reality of the many citizens. Yesterday, there was this funny thing that happened. I went somewhere. I didn't drive. So I had a lift and I alighted at my junction. From my junction to my house, it's just some few minutes walk. And normally you would walk. But I was so tired and it was late. So I picked the taxi. And when I sat in the taxi, I showed the taxi driver where I was going. And he said 20 cedis. And I said, what are you talking about? From this distance to that distance, it's a walking distance. So why 20 cedis? Then the taxi driver said, hey, mame, uni Ghana. Say, will they cry your 4 cedis? Then I laughed and I was like, what is the correlation between the price of Willie being 4 cedi and you charging? And he said, this is a watch 5 cedi. Eto Willie 4 cedi. Eto Gary 2 cedi. That is the reality of many people. And constantly they will ask you, are they on to Ghana? Because it appears that we are in a place where we've never been. And we need a leadership response like never before. And what the MPP is doing is not exercising any iota of leadership. The president, sometimes maybe he should be watching television or listening to radio or speaking to people other than his bootlickers who will tell him that he's doing so well and so we are lucky to have him as a president. Because you see, the monumental failure of this government are two projects: the planting for food and jobs and one district, one factory. That is the monumental failure, and nobody should make an attempt to justify why that project should even be continued. Sena, we live in a country where this government says that they have sunk millions of cedis into planting for food and jobs. In fact, the fertilizer which the agri minister told us that horses carried and they crossed the border with it, for that matter, the food planting for food and jobs could not materialize. Those are even in millions. As for the agri minister, I think his own is old age. He practically even forgets he's a minister sometimes. I don't know. I think he really forgets, because recently he says he's going to sell food at the premises of the ministry. I think, Charlie, there is something wrong with the MPP. Genuinely, there is something wrong, because sometimes you want to make a case, you want to rationalize, you want to appreciate their decision from their perspective, but it simply doesn't add up. That planting for food and jobs is one of the ways in which I will even personally champion an investigation into the next NDC government about how those funds were used. Because those funds have been recklessly used in a manner that I don't even know how to describe. So now, how is it that this government has sunk millions of cedis into a project called Planting for Food and Jobs? And today, we are having to buy 25 kilos of Gino for 900 cedis. When you were doing the planting for food and jobs, you didn't empower rice farmers to produce rice in this country. How is it that they are doing planting for food and jobs, and food inflation by the World Bank and the IMF's own projection, which you have gone to bail you out, is that food inflation has increased by 122%. So what we were buying for 100 cedis, today we are having to buy it for 222 cedis. First time in 40 years. And so when the president speaks and acknowledges that the mess he's presiding over is the first in 40 years, is the first in 30 years, he cannot come and give us these shallow solutions to solve a mess which we have never experienced in 30 years and 40 years. So the president should not tell us that because of planting for food and jobs, things will normalize. Because you use 6 years to create the mess. But one thing I'm happy the president admitted in the speech was that he, as a president, cannot do anything under his tenure to turn around the economic mess. Oh, it's in the speech. So if you have it, I will point to you. Yes, he said that. Yeah. The president said, so you haven't read the president's speech. Oh, what? The president said that it would take the next 3 to 6 years to experience macroeconomic stability. So ab initio, the president is telling us that under his tenure and under the tenure of their economic whiz kid, who has now become a toilet ambassador, certainly they cannot do anything about the economic mess. So, Sena, why should we even discuss this morning? The president has told you that the macroeconomic stability that we need as a nation, that we need to do something and to better the lives of the many Ghanaians whose destinies are in his hands, he cannot do anything under his tenure. That it will take the next government obviously the NDC government to come and do something about it. If that is contained in the president's speech, what then is our expectation? Now, the president says that, oh, despite the fact that I have admitted I cannot do anything about the macroeconomic conditions within my tenure, what will happen is that, oh, we are doing one district, one factory. And so we hope that it will bring us, Sena, as for that one district, one factory, let's not even talk about it because we will not finish now. As we sit today, manufacturing is doing under 2% growth. So now how else does it not beat your imagination? The manufacturing that was growing at 7.2% in 2016, at the time when there was no one district, one factory, has so declined to under 2% at the time when we are doing one district, one factory. Where else is this logic acceptable apart from under the MPP government? Where else? Because you see, when you take people's existing businesses and you just put billboards there, when you ask your party folks to come forward for money who have no experience in company or running of businesses, and you give them money and support, and you brand it as whatever, one district, one factory, in the short to medium term, within 4 to 6 years like we are experiencing, you will be exposed. Because the thing about economics and managing economic space is that it's a lot of data driven, a lot of multi-complex decision. So you cannot speak your way, and you cannot hire government spokesperson in every ministry to speak for them and expect that the real economic situation will not expose you. Because what the government did when they came to power was that for every ministry, there was a ministry spokesperson who was officially on government payroll. There was a government spokesperson for that ministry. The minister also had a spokesperson before there was a PR unit. Such waste. Such waste. So you expended so much money in speaking without doing anything. And now the president is saying that we shouldn't talk, don't make noise. So when you are speaking, speak undertone. Money doesn't make noise. Because he, the president who wore kambu and was in every church station and was making noise, at a point they were pounding for food. Osabaomia used to pound for food than anybody. They used to hold megaphones shouting. At the time, they didn't know that he can't pay the day. Today, the president, in the most comfortable luxury, hiring presidential private jets of £20,000 per hour, and sitting and playing video games and watching Netflix and drinking wine. Of course, it has TV station. What else will he be doing? It has video games. So doing that can tell us that we should not shout. Perhaps, like Sarah Brody said, he likes to enjoy in the air, not in the sky. Because sometimes, devoid of every joke, you want to find out what is the psychology of the MPP about governance. Because at a time when your people are suffering, at a time when your own majority members are saying that your finance minister is the most incompetent in the Fourth Republic, fire your cousin, fire your family and friends, your baby mamas. You know, this president has even given his baby mama position. His daughters are those in charge. Creative arts, his daughter. At a time when Ghanaians are wailing under hardship, the president has given his daughter millions of contracts. Sena, to do what? To paint the overheads in Ghana. You have not come to build any overhead. The overheads that Kwame Nkrumah, President John Kufuor, President John Mahama, President John Mills built, you have not come to build any, but you have given the contract to your daughter to paint the overheads. So now, are we okay in this country? Is everything right with us? Is the black man ever capable of managing his own affairs? So when the president is doing all these things and he comes out to speak, he cannot tell you, because what else will he be telling you? The president, together with his family, their net worth is more than the net worth of the country. Because if Ken Ofori-Atta alone has made in excess of 159 million cedis, if the finance minister would just even borrow or lend to Ghana the balance of his dollar account, our dollar will stabilize. Oh yes. If you lend to Ghana, his bank balance in the dollar account, or the profit he has made from all the transactions, the dollar will stabilize in the matter of one month. So maybe we should be pleading with the president family rather, that instead of reading to us very hollow speeches, they should do what the honest. They should lend it to us in the short and medium term. Maybe sometime later, when Ghana is okay, we can pay, because something is not right. And the president's speech is a bat of jokes.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Just Beatrice and I starting the discussion on the president's address and matters arising. I'll come to Solomon Owusu shortly, because this week I've heard the information minister actually trying to add some flesh, sometimes interpreting what the president said. The president says, no haircut. The information minister says, no, only with principals. So it depends on who you are listening to.
The time was not enough. There are so many things we need to talk about.
Mano James says, let me jump to Solo. I'll come back and read the messages when we get there. Mr. Owusu.
Sena, good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
Well, when you listen to former President Mahama, you come to one conclusion, that indeed this country will be a laughing stock should we make the mistake of giving this country to the NDC. Clearly no solution, no suggestions, no hope to the people of this country, except the usual lamentation. And the lamentations don't do in the country. It's about what you can do differently under the circumstance to better the lots of this country. I mean, she was referring to the speech delivered by former President Mahama on Thursday as the basis for President Akufo-Addo's administration. If that was the basis, then I'm sure President Akufo-Addo did not have any reason to address the nation, because what the former president came to tell the people of this country was rehashing the problems that he knew when he was the president, and professing the very solution that he tried to do, where he never took us anywhere. If you tell the people of this country that under the circumstance we should realign some of the ministries so that we can cut down ministers and so on and so forth, when in fact, when we were in the same crisis, you splitted the energy ministry from the power ministry, then what are you talking about? You are preaching virtue and practicing vice. When you suggest that under the circumstance, we must not host all Africa Games as a way of trying to reduce our debt position, then what are you talking about? When the government has already entered into agreement with contractors, stadium is being built, preparation underway, and they say because of our current difficulties, we must cut or stop whatever we are doing so that the nation can incur more judgment debt and pay more for no work done, then that seems not to be the solution. When you have a former president who comes to tell us that under the circumstance we must eat gobe and patronize made in Ghana goods, when he himself, standing on the podium, was wearing Shanghai shirt, Italian watch, and Turkish shoes, then it is not worth emulating. But so now let's come to the very address the president gave to the nation. I mean, if there was anything in doubt, the president was frank with the good people of this country. He told us that we are in crisis, and to the effect that we are in crisis, it means all of us have to come on board. So if the president has told the world or the country that we are in crisis, what else was my sister expecting? It is for us to find solutions to the very crisis that we find ourselves. Okay. And under the circumstance, no measure he would have given out would have served the short-term interest. It will be a medium to long-term solution that he will profess. It's no wonder that people are telling us the very calendar we use in 83 is the same calendar we are using in 2022. And you know what happened in 83. What are we going to do differently today so that we do not return to the days of 2022 in our lives again? To that extent, it means we need to find a lasting solution. Implement policies that has the tendency of withstanding long-term shocks and not the short-termism that my sister in the NDC wants the president to undertake. If there was any short-termism or short-term solution to our problem, it was what the president said, that we as a country or as a government are trying to identify reliable and affordable sources of crude. Because our problem today has to do with the fact that we have high inflation being fueled by cost of fuel. And if you were going to get crude from sources that are very cheap, it will go a long way to solve our problem. Sena, the president touched on the crux of the matter. Our problem has to do with how we have depended so much on import. And we have said it over and over again, that unless and until we begin to, as a country, produce most of the things that we need here, we can implement all the strategies in this world, we will still end up where we are now. And I'm very surprised that the NDC would have the math to be talking about our current situation. See, in 1983, in the 80s, when we were faced with a similar challenge, because we did not sit down to analyze critically where we were, we rushed into a program called the Structural Adjustment Program. That is the bane of our problem that we are dealing with today. What did the Structural Adjustment come to do? It only encourages into the importation of more goods and services into this country. Any good or product that we import into this country, we ship our employment out of this country. And so when we embraced importation, we decided to kill our local industry to the extent that people that were having industries here, they realized that their cost of production was much higher than goods that they were importing into this country. So they all closed their factories and also joined the bandwagon that they will also be importing. That was the genesis of our problems. So if today we have come back to the same problem, you don't solve the same problem with what we did in the past, but rather you look at it. And that was why the president was trying to direct our minds, address our minds to the fact that we needed to enhance the one district, one factory. And what was my sister saying about the one district, one factory? That we are just going to paint existing companies and then branded them as one district, one factory. I'm not sure Kasapreko will be happy with that. I'm not sure Wedidi will be happy with that. I'm not sure Casa de Europa will be happy with that. I'm not sure Ekunfi will be happy with that. I'm not sure Ryder Steel will be happy with that. I'm not sure all the 127 factories currently operating, which she has been able to brand all of them as non-entities, will be happy with that. Because if for nothing at all, they are contributing immensely to the development of this country. Yes, the president was spot on that we needed to enhance the one district, one factory. I have gone on record having said that I didn't believe we needed to spend 2 billion into NAPCO and neglect the one district, one factory. Because having spent 2 billion or pushed 2 billion into NAPCO is now collapsed. Whereas if we had invested that 2 billion into the one district, one factory, at least these factories will still be around to be absorbing the NAPCO people who will be gainfully employed to be able to pay taxes to the country, so that the very tax to GDP that the president mentioned in his address, that we needed to do everything possible to push it from the 13% to 16 to 18 or 18 to 20% would be realized. Unless until we do that, no amount of propaganda from our people, and I like the way she sounds as though the NDC is on the verge of winning any election in this country. It's laughable. And it's becoming one too many that most of their communicators on all platforms are so sure. And I like a political party that's so sure of victory. I like a political party. I like the likes of me, who are so sure of the fact that because we are in some form of difficulty, which has been admitted by all of us, I'm not sure under the current circumstance any NPP member or government appointee would be able to go anywhere and say where we are now, we are not in difficulty. That is not. Again, I like the idea that the president addressed it, though late, because you see, speculation causes a lot of problems in any economy. The idea of whether or not there will be a haircut and so on and so forth is what pushed a lot of people rushing to take their monies or calling on their investment from these banks. I'm sure if the speech had come earlier than the time that I came, it would have solved a lot of problems. To the extent that the president was categorical. Between the president and the information minister, I will always go with the president. Because it's the president that appoints the information minister. It's not an information minister that appoints the president. The president was emphatic that there will not be any haircut if the president has any other change of position on the subject matter. It is for the president to address the nation again and clarify that aspect of his speech. Unless until he does that, nobody can say that there is some form of ambiguity with the president's presentation. He was clear, and Sena, you agree with me that he did not mean any words that there will not be any haircut going forward. I mean, that is what interests me. Why we are where we are. We always dance around the issues. I mean, having identified that we need to expand the base of the economy, which is agreed, because if you listen to former President Mohammed's speech, he was also talking about we expanding the base of the economy and then patronizing our own. So it is a common grounds that both political parties, the certain president agrees, the former president agrees. So that is not in doubt. The other thing that all of us are afraid to touch is those that are funding our political activities. That is what interests me. Those that funds our political parties are the ones that are dictating the pace. You and I, do we import these cereals into this country? Talking about rice, talking about maize and so on and so forth. Do we import poultry into this country? Who are those that import these products into this country? Do we engage in galamsey or mining? The big players, those with the big players, who sponsors our political activities are the ones that import the rice, the poultry, the finished petroleum products into this country. But we will come here, all of us knowing the problem, and shut up to say the truth. Like my sister was doing. She knows that when someone sponsors her, she will not have the, anyway, she doesn't have the balls, to be able to tell the person that, look, she will not be able to tell the sponsor that you sponsored my political activity with your importation of rice, and when I have gotten the power, I'm stopping that importation. She will not be able to do that. I mean, we are human beings, and we have our limits. So unless or until the country, we revisit political party funding, we had had a lot of discussions around this subject matter. That at a point you were calling on the state to sponsor or finance political activities. We will not get anywhere. Is it not interesting? I always find it difficult that as a government, and I blame my government as well, that successive governments, ever since we discovered oil, we decide to ship our crude to Rotterdam for them to process it there, for the businessmen to go and buy finished products from Rotterdam to Ghana and decide for us how much we are supposed to buy it. When as a country, long ago, we thought of having crude in this country, so we established toll. How can we explain this? How can we explain it? I am not too sure if toll was up and running efficiently, and we were as it were, refining our crude here. We will be buying diesel at 23.49 or 447 cedis a liter, which nobody is proud of. I'm not proud of it. You are not proud of it. It is causing a lot of problems. And unless or until we deal with it immediately, because you see, our budget is expenditure and revenue. And that revenue that we are expecting goes with productivity. If by virtue of the fact that fuel prices are very high, and so people are unable to engage in productive activity, do you think we are going to realize the very tax revenue we are expecting? And that will throw our budget out of gear. And so immediately, I know Central Refinery is being put up, but I'm concerned about our own, which is store. Because Central, even from the name, sounds to me like a Chinese, because we already have Central ceramics and so on and so forth. I want Tor to be up and running. And then our share of the crude must be processed here. Because you see, crude has a lot of byproducts. Unfortunately, we have established the petrochemical industry as a government. And we will need this crude to be refined into bitumen, into plastics, into fertilizer, and so on and so forth. So we cannot afford to be refining our share of the crude out of this country. But it comes back to what I'm saying, that the funding of our political parties. It is those that are funding our political parties that import these crude finished products into this country. So who are you to stop them? So sometimes we sit behind. You could see clearly that there are certain policies that do not make common sense. But the question that we find, we always fail to ask is that, why is it that this thing does not make common sense, but it seems concurrently, all regimes, we come and do the same thing. And the problem with it is what I've identified to you, that those that give the money for activities, they will not allow you to do what is right for the country. Sena, let us tackle that. Again, then, my sister says Nanado does not have immediate solution, because if he's saying that debt to GDP will be reduced to 55% by 2028, then it means he has no solution. We have been sitting in this studio where she has attributed the 2017 GDP to the NDC. Is that not the case? In 2017, was it the NDC that was in power? Because she is tracing the success of the policy that was introduced somewhere in 2015-16 by going to the IMF, the success of it being realized in 2017. So that if Nanado's policies today materializes in 2028,
which policies?
What we are going to implement, I mean, the president was clear that what he was giving you was a general framework. The duties of it, he didn't want to bore the people's mind with technicalities, so that we have to be juggling with economic figures here and there. But he gave you the framework that one, we are going to concentrate on the one district, one factory. We are going to cut down on importation of rice, poultry, vegetable oil, and so on and so forth. Which for me is a must. But whether or not we will be able to do that depends on how well the financiers have recouped their investor monies into our political activities. Unless until we are able to deal with that, I dare say the president will not be able to achieve what he said. That is why I've been calling on well-meaning Ghanaians to be entering or venturing into politics, so that we together we can shape the narrative. Where we are now, it is not the NPP members that are suffering, it is every Ghanaian that is suffering. And so if we don't treat it as a national problem where we find a common goal to it, we would always find ourselves in some of these difficulties. Sena, our sisters and brothers in there, they will never cease to amaze me. Look, NPP party, we know we have a problem. And that is why, you remember, the call for the finance minister to resign started not with the NDC. It started from within. In fact, before the NDC will even come to the point of calling for a censorship motion, we had long ago called on the finance minister to step aside. We have not called on the finance minister to step aside because we hate him or because we feel he doesn't mean well for the people of this country, but because we believe that for the first 4 years as a minister of finance, he did his best. Now we are in a new phase. New challenges call for new dynamic leadership. And that is why some of us are calling on him to, at this stage, step down, so that there will be new ideas that will be able to confront the current challenges that we have. If our brothers and sisters in the NDC will join hands with us as a new patriotic party, to get out of office the finance minister, the better. But the way and manner they are rather going around it with this censorship motion, when in fact, when they had the opportunity of stopping his nomination as members of parliament, it doesn't help anyone. That is one of the reasons why people are beginning to lose a lot of confidence in politicians. But it has become politics. Let's say something to go and confuse the minds of the people. Because when they were given the opportunity to deal with the finance minister, they decided to choose our Kumsi and Kojo Ponkruma and then the free Akoto. That these were the people that they didn't deserve to be ministers. But they gave the finance minister an overwhelming endorsement. In fact, for the first time in the history of this country, he was able to postpone his vetting. Courtesy the National Democratic Congress. That's why I say, when I hear my brothers and sisters in the NDC sounding so confident that 2024 is their year, I laugh. Why are you going to pass to win any election in this country when your leader that is coming demonstrated a high level of incompetence in all facets of our economy? That in this country, unemployment rose astronomically, industry was not performing. She was very crafty. It's one district, one factory. What is manufacturing doing? Manufacturing comes under industry. You should have quoted industry. We are talking about trade and industry, not trade and manufacturing. So why would she conveniently choose manufacturing? Indeed, manufacturing was performing at a negative rate during their time. You couldn't, and I've challenged them. That you see, those figures that they bundle around, you cannot have a positive manufacturing rate when you do not have energy to produce in this country. Which energy were the factories rely on to be producing in this country? For you to have a positive outlook in the manufacturing sector, it will only be people living in Kenya, Azerbaijan, who would understand what she will be saying. So, Sena, let us all help this government in these difficult times so that together we can come out of our current situations. And to those that the president said, the market women and so on and so forth, we all can decide to behave as profiteers in these difficult times. Indeed, clearly some of them are hoarding products in these difficult times and deliberately pushing up prices. Yes, in the short term, you can make the gains that you are looking for. But the very people that will have to be buying, some will die on the way, some will lose their capital and will not be able to come back and buy. And when that happens, you as a businesswoman or as a businessman will lose in the long run. So don't let us revisit what happened in 1983. Now I've heard a lot of people congratulate Jerry John Rawlings that he was right in beating market women for their actions and inactions then. I don't want to believe that it is exactly what the women did in 1983 that they are doing today. Let us consider ourselves as one people with a common destiny. I'll end it here.
Thank you. Thank you. Just that I was wondering whether, because the same MPP MPs went into a meeting with the president and then came out and said that they have agreed to the terms of the president.
No. You see, let me deal with that aspect too. There are a lot of propaganda going on. As we speak, that decision of the 95 MPs has even turned as the majority decision. No MP agreed. In fact, the MPs didn't meet the president. It was a majority leader that met the president.
It was a decision of the majority leader.
The majority, the propaganda from government. So far as I am concerned,
but
the finance minister
issued a
statement.
He issued a statement, didn't he?
Who?
The majority leader issued a statement.
When the MPs were having or holding the press conference, the majority leader was not part of it. You that was not part of the meeting, why would you go and issue a statement on behalf of them? You see, it is called political gymnastics. You understand? They know. As we speak, I heard the finance minister yesterday talk as though nothing is happening. He's fine. And to even aggravate the matter, I heard Global Finance something yesterday placing the governor of Bank of Ghana as the 10th best governor in Africa. And I got mad. How can we be struggling? And the reasons they cited, inflation, economic growth, depreciation, all these things must put the governor of Ghana as the worst performing governor. So nothing has changed. The majority MPs are focused. They have the full support of the MPP members. We are doing a house cleaning exercise. Because until the MPP members ourselves, we save this country, and we say we are going to rely on our brothers and sisters from the NDC. As for them, they are worse off.
So
they are worse.
Let me do a few
and
messages.
And they don't mean well for this country.
Let me do a few messages. Mohammed Abdul Razak Ali says, Sena, please ask Solo if he's happy defending the MPP. Even his favorite candidate, Allan, is also in the economic management team. Why won't he call him? Why won't he call for him to resign? This is Prince Yusuf Mola, who says, Solo, if you want to campaign for Allan, go ahead. But don't come and waste our ears defending the current government. There's Mark Hayford who says, I really know Solo is a good communicator, but it's really hard to defend a bad government, especially when you meet excellent communicators like Beatrice. Elumen says, this guy is not serious. And I asked Solo if a bag of cement is bought at over 93 Ghana cedis is competence. Mano James is also joining us and says, please, you are campaigning for Allan to lead your party. Your MPP with your leaders, Allan, the Greek minister, health minister, and some of the old men have transferred. Okay. That is a little too far. There's Robert Dattau says, it seems Solo always contradicts himself. Ghana is sad. Akufo-Addo has acknowledged it. He Solo has accepted it. So what is he defending? There's Patrick Christina who says, it's very pathetic to do the current economic hardship. So-called one district, one factory, Motor King company based in the northern sector, started sacking their workers because they had no money to buy spare parts, talking of paying their staff. Our future is hopeless. There are more messages. Let me do a few more messages that I was sending a bit earlier before I go to Ni. Ayu Farouk is joining us. Seriously, every well-thinking Ghanaian must join the Kumi Preko reloaded demonstration. The likes of Lawyer Martin Pebu to lead the demonstration is a sign that all is not well in this country. Every day increment of food items and 4 hikes. I pray Allah saves us from this incompetent MPP Nanado government. He says Ibrahim Jonathan said the president's address to the nation in March this year. After 7 months of his address, economic challenges in Ghana worsened. The economic team has lost focus. There's no hope any longer. We need the grace of God in Ghana for us to survive. Dennis Yakwete says the president's address provides no concrete hope in the interim beyond the IMF bailout, which we don't even know when it is coming, and appears as though this government has run out of the men. Sadly, the president in this critical time chose to do his usual politics by reminding Ghanaians of some free water and electricity. And I wonder how that found expression into his address, especially given the fact that former President John Dramani Mahama had earlier spoken on the economy and had provided some tangible clue. There's Daniel Akpaliok says President Nana Akufo-Addo has developed a penchant of ridiculing, chastising, intimidating persons who boldly and constructively criticize him. This attitude of the president is the cause of the unprecedented economic catastrophe that has befallen our country, hence impoverishing all of us. If he is indeed a listening and caring president, as he has stated in his speech, he would have reduced the elephant size of his government. He would have also removed his finance minister and put a stop to his profligate expenditures on charting luxurious private jets. Alasan Isaka says third-class economic students of the 20th century, they said pampered, heavily padded to cover deficiencies and packaged with fake accolades. In this 21st century, this kind of person is bound to lose. He should rather resign immediately. There's Bernard A. Carson who says, this government is reckless. It's a reckless government. Anado, Baumia, and Ken Oforiatta must resign. He sensed that. There's Suleiman Abdurrahim from Tamale. So the president's address did not tell the people of Ghana how the price of cocoa and kose will reduce in these trying times. Alasan Hamdan says the speech has no faith, has given no faith to the people of Ghana. And the president's plan B is all on IMF, nothing really at our own backyard. That is going to be a support to the hardship right now we are facing. It's quite clear that the Akufo-Addo and Bawumia have lost control of how to bring the economic back on track. The measures being announced by the president have been approved by the BOG in the beginning of this year, and it's not working. They are short of ideas and knowledge, hence no concrete solution about the economic crisis. There's Leviticus Power Kassaw says the 12 points roadmap outlined by the president, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, when well implemented, will surely lead to the bouncing back of the Ghanaian economy. The battle is still the loss, he says. There's Simon Toklo, who says it's true the political party sponsors today in the sense is powerful. Mohammed Osman says it's never true that the MPP that started the campaign of, it was the MPP that started the campaign of, for the removal of the finance minister. Okay, that's Mohammed Osman challenging Solo on that. I heard that I heard that a lot more before I heard it from you. There's Kucho Said, who is joining us. Please, I want you to call the attention of Solo that all he's talking about are old stories of MPP. He knows nothing about what is going on. No policy that's reducing taxes and duties. That's the solution. And let's stop the big English. He talks as if he is not in Ghana. Tell Solo to stop defending the indefensible. You, those, okay. Yeah, okay. It says you are also one of them. That is Kucho Said, who is joining us. And then I think I had the message a bit earlier on from Mr. Kojo Chumbuafo. Good morning to Kojo. And Kojo says that, what is it that you don't understand about us pulling out of the All-African Games? You talk about incurring judgment debts when the government has defaulted on its own securities. When you come and sit on this program, please be serious. Innocent and disciplined citizens of this country who dutifully lend money to government are now facing ruin, and all you can talk about is judgment debt to your pet contractors and those jobs for the boys' engagements. Now you are blaming 1983 structural adjustment program for bringing us to this point. You are simply pathetic. That's coming from Kojo Chumbuafo. That is Kojo Chumbuafo sending a message. Good morning to him. Abbas Amogobo in Ofinsu says this MPP government has been very disappointing. Nothing seems to be working in Ghana, and MPP always keeps on telling us the same old story. No hope for Ghana. We are dead under the super incompetent government. And let me end with Hadi in Pikfan. He says, surely, indeed, the MPP led by President Nana Addo Bawumia government will forever remain the biggest disappointment of the Fourth Republic of our dear nation. History will judge the Nana Addo Bawumia government. They will go down in our history books as failures in disguise. Finally, I will leave the communicators of the MPP with this saying: keep quiet and they will call you a fool. Say something and they will know you are one. That's from Hadi and Peck Farm. Ni.
Yes, Sena. I think that I would commence by going through the president's speech so that whatever I'm going to say subsequently addresses exactly what he had said. He started by saying that the situation we find ourselves in, the economic challenges we find ourselves in, was created by COVID. Then proceeded to say that just when we had seen 5.4% growth in 2021 from a growth of 0.5 in 2020, then came Russia and Ukraine. At this point, he heaped all the economic challenges on COVID and Russia, claiming that inflation was actually a problem caused by Russia. Sena, God will bless us all to be way over 70 years. But I don't see myself lying under any circumstances when I cross 70 years. I would never. Because what do I have to lose? If God should bless me to be over 70 years, and then speak untruth, not to one person, but to a whole nation. And we will come to that. One thing that the president also said, and I will reinforce it because My sister Beatrice said the same. He said, whatever we will put in, we will only see some results in 2028. And that also, we will come to the facts of it. Then to the tail end, he said the recent jump in the rate of the dollar was as a result of investors and Ghanaians dumping the cedi. And then this audio on WhatsApp got us all panicking. And that he described as the noise. We will come to how factual that is also. I think basically this is all the president came to tell us. The rest is that BOG will do this, BOG will do that, BOG will do this, BOG will do that. Which also tells me that the president knows that it was a monetary challenge that has brought us here. Now, in history, no governments have accepted responsibility for inflation. Almost every government have blamed greedy businessmen, spendthrift consumers, Arab sheikhs. Today we can compare them to Russia, and all sort of things. But the truth is one. There is no beating about the bush. The truth is that government was reckless, absolute reckless, and I would come to that. Look, if you plot our broad money from 2017 to date, you will see the rapid growth in terms of the supply of money, M1. On the same line graph, plot our inflation year on year. And then you would realize a certain trend. That in 2013-2014, growth in terms of money supply shot up to 33%. Then, 2019 to 2020, growth, again in money supply M1, shot up by 35%. In 2013-2014, that shot up, that sharp increase in money supply contributed to inflation rates going so high 3 years on, around 17%. Today, that same recklessness that happened is why we are seeing inflation to the tune of 37%. But why 37% and not 17% we have had in the past under President Mahama? Look, again, if you had looked at demand deposit, that is whatever we put in our current account, from October 2021, which is the last quarter, there was a sharp increase of about 15% in growth. So a lot of people had deposited money in their bank accounts. At that same period, our foreign currency deposit had a flattened plotting on the line graph, did not move. Then from January to April, we saw a drastic reduction of demand deposits from about 50 billion to 46 billion, almost 7 billion difference. What did that 7 billion went out to do? You will not know until you have looked at the foreign currency deposit, which also increased from 29 billion to 36 billion. Here, there was also a corresponding 7 billion increase in foreign currency deposits. What we are experiencing today was largely about monetary policy failure. So I agree with Solo that the BOG governor has no business being where he is. But what was missing in Mr. President's address, which was a critical ingredient of his fellow Ghanaian speech? Because all those speeches were premised, as he would have said in all of his speeches during COVID. He would have said that whatever decisions are being taken is supported by what? Data and science. Where was the data and where was the science in this presentation? Not forgetting that they had come back from Peduasi with his economic management team and cabinet. And this is what they produce. I have said it before, and I am repeating it. No member of this current cabinet and the economic management team is ever fit to be elected by anybody in this country. Again, in 1973, when we had issues with oil, Japan, Germany, the US, they all face a similar situation with oil pricing and the challenges with oil. Japan inflation from about 7% shot up to 30%. By 76, it has dropped again to about 5%. Similar figures for Germany. Just that Germany, I think, from 5% to 7%, 8%, and then dropped back to about 5%. The US, around 4-5%, also increased sharply to about 12%, brought down to around 7%. By 79, the US was recording over 15, almost 15% inflation. That is to tell you that we would be in the same global situation, but the effect on each country will be unique. And at no point would you have the same figures or impact on each country. And that represents how the country finances have been managed. None of the reasons we will attribute to the cause of inflation has a printing press that produces money or prints money. The issue we are facing is somebody who increased spending so much by 127%. The average over 4 years was over 110% increase in spending, and therefore printed more money to support that appetite. And the consequences of it is what we have to endure with now. We shouldn't be given all these reasons as the reason for where we are. No, it cannot be. Another thing that we need to look at is their policy of full employment. This government set out to fill everywhere. They created flagship programs that were just employing people without looking at the returns. We had jumped from 14 billion, a budget of 14 billion on wages and salary, to over 30 billion. Then the issue of monetary policy. Is BOG telling us way back in October they couldn't monitor their own figures? Is BOG telling us they did not know or they did not feel the growth in money supply? And what, in their estimation, would have been market reaction? Then we come to that 2-minute audio the president was referring to, that there's going to be a haircut, and therefore we all went out there and dropped the CD. It is not true. It cannot be true. Because even the World Bank have had to say the reasons why over $2 billion of our investors had to pull out. It was not based on audio. And in fact, most of these are non-residents. Most of those who dumped the city are non-resident investors that you have invited in to participate in our local bonds, largely. By last quarter last year, prices of all our dollar-backed bonds, prices have reduced sharply. And there was every indication that it was going to slam further. What do you think those investors will do? They will liquidate quickly and move away. This was the same time that the US started the hawkish behavior on their markets, and Fed consistently was hiking interest rates or their MPR rates. We sat down and did nothing until June, July, when we started also raising monetary policy rates. The effect of that is what we are feeling today. It is not a 2-minute audio. For Christ's sake, the president should give investors some respect. This is so disrespectful that some 2-minute audio about a haircut, the reason for people dumping their CDs. Oh, so the Ghanaian holding CDs in his hands, who walk into the Forest Bureau to ask for dollars, did so because of a 2-minute audio. Me sitting here today, I've never heard of that audio. Will there be a haircut? Yes, there will be a haircut. What do you mean by haircut on the principal? What do you mean by that? That there will be no haircut on the principal? In fact, everybody has been given a haircut today. On your principal, today, let anybody challenge this fact that today, if you have an investment in any of our bonds of the value of 1,000 cedis, and you want your money today, you would come out with only 50% of that money. That is a haircut. What are we talking about here? We cannot reduce this country to such jokes. In fact, the people saying this are the reasons why investors would rather move out. Because if I am to invest in any country where the president of the country who appoints a finance minister coming from Pediasi, a retreat with his own cabinet and serve us with this, it means that we don't know our left from our right. That is what we are telling every investor in this country. Solo is talking about 83 and structural whatever. It cannot also be true. It cannot be true. Because when you took power in 2017, money supply has been reduced from the 33% in 2014 to 16% in 2015. 2016, we had about 16%, and further in 2017, it was reduced subsequently to 12%. It flattens around 12% for some time. And then comes 2019, when IMF went out of this country. That is when you increased money supply by 35%. That has nothing to do with structural adjustment in 1983. That irresponsible, reckless behavior had nothing to do with structural adjustment in 1983. And when you had reduced money supply, inflation dropped to about 7.8% year on year. Was that also based on 1983 structural adjustment programs? When under your tenure, in your first term, you have dropped, because the IMF was with you here, you have dropped the effect of the IMF program taken up around 2014 under the NDC. So everything Mr. President came to tell us are pure untruth, and we shouldn't say otherwise. We shouldn't put any flesh on it. Look, the other aspect of all this is the conflicting signals being sent to us. Whereas you tell us that this is monetary issues, challenges we are having. At the same time, in the same speech, you told us that your budget has failed because of Russia, Ukraine. Your budget is in tatters. When in fact, by the time the budget entered Parliament, the budget had already failed.
Can this be possible?
Sena, we have had conversation, myself and you, on radio, and I told you before the budget was approved that this budget has no life, it will fail. I prognosed then, and you can help Solo with the.
But the point is how
I prognosed then that, look, whatever revenue targets you wish to achieve will not be possible. I even gave them 900 million for e-levy. By their own revised budget, they are saying they could do only what? 600. They said they can only do 600. Now, whose business was it to actually draw up budgets that will have life? Whose responsibility was that? It is not my responsibility. It is you, the president. So the president again coming to tell us that I did so bad in terms of my 2022 budget, but its failure is on Russia. It's so cheap, and I never ever thought.
Okay.
The president, Nana Akufo-Addo, we all knew confidently with a suit and handkerchief at the tail of his suit, will tell us today that he failed and the failure belongs to Russia.
Okay.
We cannot continue this joke. And that is why we need to get serious. And things that we say must be supported with fact, data, and science.
Okay.
I end my submission here.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me just, this is a message coming from Dr. David Percy to Solo. It says, good morning, Sena. Your guest Solomon Owusu comes across in the best traditions of the NLM Matimihu UP now MPP, with his ability to 1, speak from both sides of his mouth, and 2, invent facts on the fly. He says that before the NDC asked for dismissal of Ken, the crooked finance minister, his MPP had already made that demand.
Of course.
Really?
Oh, yes.
The MPP never ceases to amaze. That's from Dr. David Percy. Ambassador Sampiale says, in the president's speech, he said the economy had rebounded from COVID pandemic and was growing by 5% until the Ukraine war. So blaming COVID for our current crisis is moot and very disingenuous. Again, the World Bank report 20th April 2018 listed Ghana as one of the countries with a high likelihood of debt default. So why blame Ukraine when your economy had already collapsed? So that's coming from Ambassador Sampiale and Dr. David Percy. Mr. Pratt.
Well, throughout the week and after the president's speech, I have continuously expressed my fears and anxiety, and I intend to do same today. Forget all the highfalutin sermons about the economy and so on. Forget all of that. The reality is that our today is frightening, and our tomorrow is worse than Dracula. That's our reality. So all these things about, oh, I'm MPP and we did better than NDC, and I'm NDC and we did better than MPP and so on. As they say on the street, in language which is not fit for television, but language which truly graphically expresses the situation. When the shit hits the fan, we all get it. What is unfolding before our eyes is so frightening. And I think that ought to be our focus. Responsible citizens ought to be looking at how to avert the Armageddon that is headed in our direction. That's how responsible citizens have to behave now. You see, when I didn't want to say hide behind, But when we hide behind the gross domestic product, GNP, and so on, we deceive ourselves into slumber. The reality is something else, my brother. Look, for those people who have really worked hard, who have had an eye on the future, who have put something aside so that they can deal with the future. Where is the future today? If through your hard work and sensible planning and so on, you are able to save 500 cedis, 500 cedis. Today, your 500 cedis has lost more than half its value in a twinkle of an eye. And the crisis is continuing. So we can get to a situation where your 500 cedis can actually be worth 20 cedis. We are practical. That's what we are facing. The situation we are facing today is such that many people in our country cannot assure themselves of 1 meal a day. 1 meal a day. And when I talk about 1 meal a day, I'm not talking about fufu at Kempiski. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about banku and okra soup under the shed at the petrol station. That's what I'm talking about. That's where we are. You understand? I'm talking about kenke, dark kenke, and fish by the roadside. I'm talking about cocoa and kose by the roadside. Today, eating fried plantain is a luxury, total luxury. Maybe even not fried. Roasted plantain has become a luxury in our time. Eating roasted plantain and granules has become a luxury in our time. That is what I'm talking about. You see, our leaders have continuously spoken about the need to preserve the democratic order. All of us have heard. Now, nobody preserves anything that doesn't work in their interest. People preserve what works in their interest. So if a democratic process is not able to provide kenke and fish, for many people, that democratic process is absolutely useless. The democratic process must yield results for the people. The democratic process must open up access to education. The democratic process must open up access to healthcare. The democratic process must end homelessness. The democratic process must make it possible for everybody to eat something. Because if you don't eat, we all die. Unfortunately, the democratic process is not responding to the needs and aspirations of our people. And therefore, I'm frightened. I'm so very frightened that perhaps very soon, very, very soon, if it's not happening already, very soon, people will refuse to invest in this so-called democratic process. That's what is staring us in the face. You understand? That's what is staring us in the face. Now, everybody expected that the president was going to address concrete demands of the people. We were not expecting the president to come and impress us with his ability to speak 4 different languages. That was not the expectation. Who cares whether the president speaks French or speaks Latin? Nobody cares. In these circumstances, do we care whether our president speaks Latin, French, or Swahili? Do we care? Nobody cares. Nobody was expecting the president to come and tell us things that he did in March. Because those things have not worked. If the things he did in March had worked, we wouldn't have gotten into this situation. So the president and his team, who were responsible for the speech which he gave last Sunday, completely missed the point. Indeed, clearly, what the speech demonstrated was that the president is living in a world of his own. A world of his own. Indeed, in English language, some describe that world as cuckoo's land. You understand? Now, what did the president say? A lot of people were expecting him, including his own party members and leaders. His own party members and leaders. I'm not talking about NDC, I'm not talking about CPP, I'm not talking about PS. I'm not talking about the vast majority of our people who do not belong to any political party. They were expecting him to make a pronouncement on the status of his finance minister. Not a word was said about that. Not a word. That demand of 138 MPs who support his government and 137 MPs who may not support his government. The demand of 275 members of parliament, all members of parliament, for the removal of his Minister of Finance was just thrown through the window. It was not addressed at all. Sena. So people were sitting behind their televisions and saying, what is this address about?
Mr. Pratt, yes. I think it's not so awful because everybody's complaining about your mic. So what we'll do is that we'll take a short break so that they can check your mic for you. Because you said it keeps going on and off. I thought they were going to deal with it, but it looks like it's not getting any better. So we'll take a break. We'll be right back so that we can fix Comrade Kwesi Pratt's mic.
He has suffered to lead his people.
Welcome to Calm Trading and Farms Limited. We are the sole importers and distributors of FM World Rulong Plus Plus combined harvesters. We are the sole importers and distributors of FM World combined machines. If you buy from us, spare parts are readily available. Our machines can pick and harvest logged rice as well as standing rice and is 102 horsepower. FM World tractors also have 110 horsepower, which is fully hydraulic and can break hard grounds. Our rotavators is also 102 horsepower. It works perfectly in muddy areas and in lands where tractors cannot operate. World combine harvesters come with automatic gear drive, diesel power engine, 1.77 cubic grain storage tanks, 2.2 meter curtain width, 360-degree unloading pipe and sunshade, as well as 2 diesel filters. Our branches include Tamale Airport area, Accra Ritz Junction. Kindly call us on 0278 223 811 or 0550 108 899, as well as 020 1600 727. Don't buy fake, buy original. Buy from us now. Come Trading and Farms Limited, your best importers and suppliers of FM World Roulon Plus Plus combined harvesters.
Hello, information.
Madam,
May I have still not got the money for that list of expensive building materials you sent to me. The price of the iron rods have been increased too much, added.
Madam, relax. Look, that's not why I didn't call you. I just visited IPCP, where the engineers told me everything about Trasacco fast floor.
Chawako, please, those people are expensive. Are they not the people building those big houses in town? I beg going to Nagai.
Madam, in fact, I used to think the same until I visited their office today, and they gave me an estimate of how much it will cost. No, the estimate is free. It's cheaper than the one I even sent you.
Wow.
Building contractors, foremen, masons. Visit IPCP, the Trasacco Fast Floor. Engineers will assist you build an affordable, faster and stronger building.
Oh, madam. It is done.
Wow.
Trasacco Fast Floor. Stronger, faster and affordable.
This is a Trasacco construction product.
Into the land of freedom, he's the Redeemer.
Welcome back from the break. You're still watching the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji, live on TV, on Pan-African TV, of course, live on our various social media pages, on Facebook, Pan-African Television, YouTube, Pan-African TV, and of course, live on Radio Gold, and also live on several affiliates across the country. Mr. Pratt had the floor on the matter of the president's address and matters arising. Kwesi.
Well, first of all, I have no idea how much of what I said earlier had been lost. And I cannot even fully remember what I said earlier, so I will continue. The point I tried to make simply was that the president's broadcast did not address any of the fundamental issues which had been raised and which made it necessary for him to speak to the nation. And I'm looking at the call on the president to fire the Minister of Finance and the Minister of State responsible for finance. President did not even say a word about that demand. And the demand is overwhelming. You have all your members of parliament, from the majority side, from the minority side, from everywhere. 275 members of parliament have agreed that this minister must go home. And the president did not find it necessary to say a word about this demand. Now that's very interesting. It is so interesting because his own ministers, his own members of parliament, have also come to tell us about what has happened behind the scenes in the Flagstaff House. We have been told that the president has asked the members of parliament to hold on, to allow this minister to prepare the budget for 2023. Present the budget to parliament and seek approval for the appropriations bill and conclude negotiations with the International Monetary Fund before he goes home. Now, Sena, that is so very strange. I mean, who can believe this? It's so very strange. One, there are complaints about the budget for 2022. It has been a total disaster. Nothing in that budget has been realized. The economy is on a downward slope. It's speeding into a ditch. And on account of all these failures, the demand is made that the minister must go home. And the president says, the same minister who prepared the 2022 budget, which has been a failure, should be allowed to prepare the 2023 budget. What are we expecting in 2023 then? Sena, what are we expecting in 2023 then? There's a family of 4. The first member of the family goes to a hospital. Wrong diagnosis. He's given an injection and he falls dead. He's like, we should stop going to this hospital. Wrong diagnosis, wrong injection. One person is dead. Then the head of the family says, no, don't worry. Don't be in a hurry to dismiss this doctor. Let him handle the second member of the family who is also sick. What do you expect? The head of that family actually is obviously intent on mass suicide for every member of the family. And that's what is happening. First injection, 2022 injection, look at what we are suffering. Say, no, don't worry. Let's add 2023 injection too. What will happen? It's incredible. Now, it's as if when it comes to the 2023 budget, competence is not a criteria in the preparation of 2023 budget. Because, Sena, listen very carefully. If all the majority, 137 of them plus 1, agree with the position that the minister should go home on grounds of incompetence, it means that the minister's own colleagues in cabinet have also joined the call for him to go home. Because that 137 includes cabinet ministers who are also members of parliament. So we are not talking about just members of parliament, we are also talking about cabinet ministers who have come to a conclusion that their colleague, as they say in P, on board number. So he should go home. And the president says no, he should stay there, prepare the budget and present it to parliament. Now, Sena, what the president is saying, and if I were the finance minister, I'd be very worried about the intentions of the president. This is a hostile parliament. Clearly hostile parliament. And the president is saying that the finance minister should take the next budget to a parliament which has clearly demonstrated unanimous hostility to him. What is this? My brother, what is this? I can't believe it. Now, don't forget that recently, the finance minister was said to be ill. What happened? It was Honorable Chairman Bonsu who did the presentation to Parliament. Ally? So even when the finance minister is at post, President tells us that somebody else can present the budget. So why is the president insisting that the finance minister alone and him alone must make the presentation of the budget? Beats me, and I'm sure beats every right-thinking person too. Okay? Now, there's also another problem. Massa, all budgets are presented to Parliament on behalf of the president. Huh? The budget is not the property of the finance minister. He is only the agent who finally presents it to Parliament. In fact, the president can decide to present the budget to Parliament himself. Okay? So the ownership of the budget is not the owner of the budget is not the finance minister. It's the government. Now, from what is happening and from the president's stance, it does appear that the budget is the property of the finance minister. That all the cabinet has no input. That even he, the president, may not know what is in the budget. Is that the true situation? If that's the true situation, we should all be worried that in this government, this cabinet, only one person knows what is in the budget, and only one person can defend the budget. That's worrying. It means that the cabinet is not working. The cabinet is asleep. I'm very worried about this situation. Okay? So very worried about this situation. And then we are told that the negotiations with the IMF has to be done by this single one person. I don't believe that recourse to the IMF provides any solution for the hydra-headed economic problems that we are suffering. I don't believe that. Okay? But for those who believe that, including the president and so on, how come that this one person who told us in the face that going to the IMF devalues national dignity, undermines our sovereignty, how come that this is the only guy who can negotiate with the IMF? So we are sending Ken Ofori-Atta to the IMF to go and degrade our national dignity, to go and undermine our national sovereignty. Is that the case? Can you believe what is happening? I can't. I'm struggling too. I can't. In any case, one would have thought that the program we have taken to the IMF is a program that is collectively owned by government. Even beyond that, we are told that this program ultimately is the result of consultations with Association of Ghana Industries, Ghana Chamber of Commerce, trade unions, truck drivers, taxi drivers. Is that not what we have been told? But all of a sudden, it is Ken Ofori-Atta's program. He is the only one who can defend it. He is the only one who can negotiate it. Nobody in the cabinet can do that. And I'm so surprised. Look, the focus of attention on the finance ministry is on the Honorable Substantive Minister himself and the Honorable Minister of State for Finance. There are two persons still there. Ally? There are two deputy ministers there. So those two deputy ministers, what is happening? It is interesting that nobody has called for their removal, which would suggest that they are happy with their performance. What is the basis of that happiness with their performance? And somebody must tell me. I don't know. There are 2 deputy ministers, 1 minister of state, and 1
Oga at the top.
Oga at the top. Yeah. Fantastic. We have selected 2 of them to go home. What about the other 2? Are they doing well? Now, if they are doing well, why can't they take over and prepare the budget and go to the IMF to defend our program and so on? Unless we are saying that those 2 ministers are mere passengers. Unless you're saying so. I'm not the one saying it. Unless we are telling the world and Ghanaians that those 2 deputy ministers are mere passengers. Now, if those 2 deputy ministers are mere passengers, doesn't it justify the call for the reduction of number of ministers? If 2 deputy ministers cannot conclude the preparation of a budget which has already started, present it to Parliament for approval, and go to IMF and negotiate our position, what are they doing there as deputy ministers? Job for 1 boy and job for 1 girl? Is that what is happening? Just simply beats me. Okay? Now, only last week, we were told that as a result of some hiccups in the negotiations with the International Monetary Fund, the presentation of the budget will be delayed. Okay? We know that by law, the presentation of the budget cannot go beyond November. So this delay, how long would the delay be? Some have suggested by end of November and so on. So it means that Ken Ofori-Atta is staying there for a full month. Just preparation of the budget. Processes leading to the appropriation bill, and last year, it went beyond January. And it may very well go beyond January. So then we can be looking at Ken Ofori-Atta holding that portfolio as Minister of Finance to somewhere in January, February. As for negotiations with IMF, don't go there. Because we know of countries which have negotiated with the IMF for 3 years and there's been no resolution. So in essence, what the president is telling all of you who want the minister out is simply go to hell. Go to hell. Because the president has only 2 years more. Only 2 years more to stay in office. Says, go to hell. Sena, this Minister of Finance matter, if we are to drag it, I don't know when we are going to leave this studio. Because there are other dimensions, okay? The other dimension simply is a problem with the so-called minority side of Parliament. Huge problem. Don't let us create the impression that the problem we are dealing with is an NPP problem alone. It's also an NDC problem too. You know why? I saw all the charges which have been listed against Ken Ofori-Atta. More than half of them were things we knew before the president renominated him for appointment as Minister of Finance. They were ignored. He's one of the appointees who had the largest number of votes in Parliament. So today, that NDC minority cannot be telling us they didn't know. They knew. And if they knew, why did they approve him? They are the people who are telling us that the man is incompetent. So they deliberately approved an incompetent person for such a key position as Finance Ministry, and then today they've turned around to tell us that the man is incompetent. You didn't know? Sometimes they should just stop wasting our years. They should just stop wasting our years. Can't believe. Sometimes you can't believe what happens. But this is the fact. This is the reality. Okay? So that is number one. Number two, everybody is complaining about hardship. In fact, today, to buy a gallon of petrol, 1 gallon of diesel, you need to cough up more than 100 cedis to buy 1 gallon of diesel. Sena, I bought my first car, the one that I used my pocket money to pay for, in 1976. That's when I bought my first car. Do you know that the value of that whole car in real monetary terms is less than the price of a gallon of gasoline today? I mean, if you come to consider the fact that between 1981 and now, the city has been cumulatively devalued by something like 28,000%. And you come to consider the fact that I bought my first car for 350 cedis or so. The value of the whole car cannot buy 5% of a gallon of diesel today. That's the reality. That's the reality. So people are talking about it. Now, what is the president's solution? Nothing in the speech. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The speech doesn't talk about this at all. Escalating food prices. No comment about escalating food prices. No comment. Was there any comment about escalating food prices? None whatsoever, and so on. So the essential things that touch the lives of our people were ignored by the president. There was an omnibus categorization of the problems that confront us. Hey, today, I'm sounding like somebody who was on the show last week. Last week, one of your colleagues was on the show. My goodness. Even the Advanced Learners Dictionary could not help us to understand what he was saying. And today I'm also talking about omnibus category and so on. Please forgive me. It wasn't my intention to sound like my friend. But what did the president tell us? That Ukraine and COVID are still responsible for our problems. I mean, I pitied the president when I heard him say that. Because his members of his cabinet, his own parliamentarians, have rejected that claim completely. Why? Colonel Furiata, is he a laboratory technician? Was he involved in the manufacture of the COVID virus? No. Is he a general in the Russian army? No. So, if you are insisting that Colonel Furiata is the problem and should go, how do you use COVID and Ukraine as the cause of the economic crisis? Unless, of course, we don't know that secretly Colonel Furiata is a general in the Russian army. Because it doesn't make sense. We have gone past COVID and Ukraine because of the massive demand from government and NPP that Colonel Furiata should go. Clearly, the signs are one of incompetence and not Ukraine and COVID. Okay? In any case, if you still want to hang on to Ukraine and COVID as the reason for the hardship, check the performance of the economy of Ukraine, the performance of the economy of Russia, and compare it to the performance of Ghana. The countries engaged in combat have better economies than we have. The Ukrainian currency has more value than the Ghanaian cedi. Where the bombs are dropping, where infrastructure is getting destroyed and so on, is doing better than us. Indeed, Ghana's currency is the worst performing currency in the world. Worse than Lebanon, worse than Sri Lanka. How do you explain this with Ukraine-Russian conflict? It doesn't make any sense. The other day I was talking about this COVID-19 business. I was saying that, look, if you take COVID-19, according to the Minister of Finance, so not me, we got so much money for COVID-19 that at the end of the day, we made savings which we plowed back into financing the budget. So, according to the Minister of Finance, we actually made profit. We made profit on COVID-19. Now, if there's a development for which you make profit, how does that become your problem? When you are making profit from it, how does that become your problem? So, this COVID-19 things, let's pack it, as they say, one side. Pack it one side. Then we are looking for solutions to the problem. And then the president tells us that, oh, you people, have you forgotten that in March, I instructed that all my appointees, MMDCs, ministers and deputy ministers, they should cut their salaries by 30%. Have you forgotten? No, we haven't forgotten. Except that we know that instruction did not change the situation. The situation continued to get worse after that instruction. So it is not a solution. It is not a solution. Then the president looks us in the face and says, have you forgotten that in March, I said that irrelevant official travels abroad should be stopped. But that statement is loaded. So they knew that there were some travels abroad which were irrelevant, and they allowed it to go on for 6 years. They knew. And it continued for 6 years. Anyway, they said it should stop. Maybe we are happy. We salute you, sir. But the order was given in March. And the situation continues to get worse. So that is not the solution. In any case, as we speak, I'm hearing something. Maybe Solo can confirm it for me. That the president has dashed off to a climate conference in Egypt. What is that relevance to Ghana? Today, tell me. Today, given the crisis that we face. Massa, these so-called advanced countries have polluted the atmosphere over many years. They are responsible for the climate change, not us. How much pollution do we do? How much pollution, all of us, Africa, Latin America, and so on, if you add all of our pollution together, it does not equal the pollution of one major industrial country in the world. And yet we are the people flying jets around the world, attending climate conferences and so on. For what purpose? They have depended on fossil fuels to get them to where they are. Now they've gotten to where they are, and they say, you, don't depend on fossil fuels. And we say, we agree. Agree for what? Yes, there's climate change. Climate change is a danger to all of us. But those who pollute the atmosphere more must pay more and must show more concern than those of us who have not even begun industrialization. Simple common sense. Okay? Then, for those of us who have been saying that we have a structural problem, structural economic problem, and in fact, I agree with my brother who says that it's a monetary problem. It's not a monetary problem. It's a fundamental structural problem. Okay? The president attempted to respond to us. He said, yes, it's a structural problem. We need to move away from the God-given economy. But that is why, for the last 6 years, we have been doing one district, one factory. Massa, why? The truth is that one district, one factory is not an industrialization program. Everybody knows that. It's a business support project. That's all. So don't deceive us. It's not an industrialization program. It's a business support project. Finish. So one district, one IF is not about fundamentally restructuring the national economy. It's a business support project. Leave it like that. Okay? In any case, we have been doing one district, one factory for 6 years. Where is the result? Show me the results. If you ask them to show you the result, they then start counting factories. Okay? And Sena, about 3 months ago, I saw a video. For whatever it's worth. I'm sure many of you have seen that video. A vulcanizing shop somewhere with a big signboard in front of it. One district, one factory. But you've seen that video?
Yes,
you've seen that video?
Just wicked part out of those.
Oh, okay.
He knows all the location. He knows all the location.
I know all the.
But I saw this vulcanizing shop. Huge signboard. In fact, the signboard is 3 times the size of the vulcanizing shop. One district, one factory. And then there's this famous one that I always like to talk about. The Motor King assembly plant in Tamale. What is this deception? So when you start talking about one district, one factory, they start counting factories. That is quantitative analysis. I'm even putting it nicely. It is not even quantitative analysis. But let's say that it is. We are dwelling on quantities. We are not dwelling on quality. If 1D, 1F is an import substitution program, it should reflect in a balance of payments. Okay? What is the reflection? The contribution of industry to GDP is dwindling, has been dwindling over the last 6 years. So why is anybody boasting about one district, one factory? We've done it for 6 years. No impact. So how is that being presented to us today? We've done it for 6 years. Today, Kenke is still 5 cedis a ball. So why is that a solution which is being thrown into our face and so on? Okay? Now, some of the things said by the president are exceedingly worrying for me. Sena, I'm a little old, or maybe I'm very old, whatever it is. I've seen it all happen. We were in this country where in 1979, poor traders, our mothers, our wives and sisters, were blamed for the economic hardships that we were going through. And they claimed that they were speculating. These women were speculating. You know what was done to them? These women were stripped naked, stark naked, paraded through the principal streets in our country, and they were whipped on their bare buttocks to public applause. Today, 2022, our president is saying that it is their speculation which is leading to high prices. Their greed, their love for unreasonable profits and so on. I said, but this happened in 1979. This allegation was made against traders in 1979. Some of the traders died as a result of this false allegation. And we are repeating saying, in 2022, I feel sad for the traders. What have the traders done wrong? You buy your stock at 10 cedis. Within a week, you realize that you can no longer buy the same stock at 10 cedis. That stock is now valued at 50 cedis. You must be a fool as a trader not to increase your prices. Because if you don't increase your prices, you do not only lose, you lose your capital. So if there's any speculation, the speculation is rather the result of the failure of the managers of our economy than the greed of the traders. And these poor innocent traders, they are being blamed again. After what they saw in 1979, they are being blamed again. 1979 by a military government, 2022 by a civilian government. I can't believe it. Poor traders, they are responsible, they are greedy. They want to make undeserved profits. That is why we are suffering. Is that the truth? Certainly not. Okay, certainly not. And then, the spin doctors. Now in Ghana, there are so many squealers. So many squealers. In animal farm, there was only one squealer. In only animal farm, there was only one squealer. Is this squealer or the propaganda chief? There was only one in animal farm. In Ghana, there are so many of them. There are so many of them. Now they come to us, they are not even shy. They are looking us in the face and say, don't you see that after the president's speech, the CD has gained value? Stop that nonsense. Don't tell it to us. So if you knew that the president's speech could force the city to appreciate in value, why did the president wait so long? Then every 5 minutes the president should come and make a speech. We don't have to think again. All we have to do, bring president, let him come and tell us that traders are greedy. And then the city would appreciate. Wow, what rubbish is that? What nonsense is that? My friend, what rubbish is that? These squealers. And then for me, the other thing which is most interesting. Now we have a president who likes to show that he can speak fluent French and speak fluent English and speak Ga and speak his own native tongue and so on. But he needs an interpreter every time he speaks. Hey! This president who is so brilliant about languages, in one address he can use 4 languages. Every time he finishes speaking, Kojo Opon Nkrumah has to come and interpret what he intended to say. That's so much for the president's linguistic ability. Now, Kojo Opon Nkrumah came to us and said that when he spoke about Sikam Perof and Sikam Pededeno, what he actually meant was that he was speaking against speculation. And so, why couldn't the president say that in his speech direct? So, Kojo Opon Nkrumah now is the interpreter of the president. The president, when he speaks, we can't understand. It needs a Kojo Opon Nkrumah to come and explain things to us. My brother, bottom line. This country is in a very bad place. Okay? Cosmetics will not resolve the problem that face us. There are clearly serious fundamental structural problems with the national economy. And we need to resolve these problems. These problems have been known. The only difficulty is that they're getting worse by the day. But we've known them. When Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah launched the first 5-year development program, it was meant to tackle this very problem, which is getting out of hand today. When the 5-year development program was revised and the 7-year development program was launched, its objective was to address the problems which confront us today. Indeed, within the last 2 months, I've gone back to read the 7-year development program. And I'm wondering why our economies and so on are running around like headless chicken. Let's just go back. Pick the 7-year development program, read it, read its rationale, read its intended objectives and so on. Everything is there. Some things may have changed, but the fundamentals are there. The fundamentals are in the 7-year development program. And those of you who fear socialism, those of you who fear socialism and so on, don't forget that the 5-year development program was crafted by a team of experts which included an archangel of capitalism, Atta Lewis. Don't forget that your own J.H. Spencer was instrumental in the drafting of these programs. What we need to do is to take control of our natural resources and to exploit our natural resources for the benefit of our people. What we need to do is to immediately end the irrational foreign exchange retention agreement with the mining companies. We need to stop that now. What we need to do is to make sure that the telecom industry has Ghanaian participation. We need to do that. What we need to do is to follow our own laws and rules and so on, and to make sure that the governors of the Bank of Ghana are not in the pocket of the government, and that they can think independently, and that they will tell us the truth about the state of the economy. Why? Money supply has gone up so much. How did money supply go up so much? Check the figures. Are we printing more currency? Because money supply doesn't go up by accident. What is the Bank of Ghana telling us about what accounts for the increase in money supply over the last 6 years? Master, let me stop here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, this is when we're speaking. Kojocho Mbuafo sent a response or sort of. Says, Sena, I hate to disappoint my big brother Kwesi, but the president is not going to fire the finance minister. That's excuse about him preparing the budget before he leaves is utter, says BS. Last year, the finance minister was ill for about 8 months. He didn't prepare the budget, nor did he even read it. It was the majority leader who prepared the budget. For information, it's the technocrats of the finance ministry who prepare budgets, not the minister. Indeed, there's a whole division of the finance ministry called the budget office, replete with a chief director. Also, the inducements and bribes that were given to the parliamentarians in terms of all manner of arrears is testament to their intentions. Yesterday, the finance minister told us in an interview that he has been through aches and pains and knew what he was doing. The aches and pains of creaming massive profits from heaping misery on Ghanaians. He is in pain from stealing from us, so he must finish the job. That is Kojo Chumbuafo. That's the message he sent. Well, thank you very much for sticking and staying with us. We have to move on to the very next discussion, and it's on what is happening in Parliament, something we've discussed over and over again. Just that this time around, I think the minority is taking a step in an attempt to block the bill from going through. They have petitioned the Speaker. Whether that will succeed is another matter. But I'll start with Solo this time around.
Well. Once again, back to the same old story.
Yeah, and you have to be very brave for me.
Insincere opposition we have. We are putting all sort of problems for us as a country. I mean, the opposition and this has to be up and doing. They have to take us very serious. What is it about? You are blocking a CI that will enable the Electoral Commission to perform its mandate. I mean, when on the 20th of February 2012, you were giving us the Identity Registry Act, LI 211. Where were they? The very parliament dominated by the NDC that said that the Ghana card must be the basis for voter registration is now telling us when the Electoral Commission is using the very act, LI that they gave us to do their business, the same parliament dominated by the National Democratic Congress is saying, oh, what we did in 2012 was wrong. We shouldn't use that. I mean, how can we? It explains why my difficulty with this current crop of MPs who are representing the NDC. I mean, what are they afraid? That Ghanaians that are going for the Ghana card, who are not complaining that they cannot use it to register for their voters ID. I have now been told, we have been told, that hey, unless we use a different means of identification, the NDC cannot win an election. That is clearly telling Ghanaians that they have lost the election in advance because it's not going to change. The situation is not going to change. And look, listen to their reasoning that the Electoral Commission or the NIE must go and register all the backlog before they come to them. How is that going to be possible? What research has the NDC itself as a political party or the members of parliament done to know the true number of Ghanaians who are yet to get their Ghana card? I did the mathematics here the last time for you. That you are talking about a country of 32 million. 0 to 14 people are not supposed to register for the Ghana card. So if it, and we are told by the Ghana Statistical Service that 39% of our population constitute the ages of 0 to 14%. If you take out that one from the 32 million we have, we are talking close to about 19 million. Then if you take the 15 years to 17 years out of that number, we are left with about close to 16 million to 17 million. The NIA says they have registered and given out more than 16 million cards. The NDC, and for that matter, the minority in parliament, must focus on encouraging those that are yet to register to go and register. Because the very constitution that they are quoting, that every Ghanaian of 18 years and of sound mind has the right to vote, also goes with conditions that before you can vote, you have to register. And which institution has been closed with the powers of registering Ghanaians is the Electoral Commission. What laws are they relying on to do that? It's your very LI 2111 that you gave to them. That hey, you cannot register anybody when the person does not present the Ghana card. So it is just throwing dust into the people of into the eyes of the people of this country. They know they goofed when they asked some members of the National Democratic Congress somewhere 2018 not to register for Ghana card through their Functional Executive Committee. That was a goof. So they should come back and apologize. In any case, the election is not going to be held only for the NDC. NPP has a stake in the election, CPP has a stake in the election. So they must not behave as though they will tell us what to do. The mere fact that the new patriotic party is not minding them does not mean that they will have a field day. No? If we were going to go by their dictates, then they must as well be appointed as the Electoral Commission of Ghana. So let them understand that we believe in the very airline that they passed in 2012 under the able leadership of Professor Ivanza Campbells. There is nothing wrong with that. We are going by that. The Electoral Commission has no business whatsoever taking or accepting any other identity apart from the Ghana card. And that any attempt to change that position will see the NPP rising up to the occasion. For now, it is much ado about nothing. They can appease themselves, knowing very well that the Electoral Commission will not change anything. Because the Ghana card will prevent the very rigging we are talking about. We have been complaining in this country that elections are rigged. Why? We don't want to put in ghost names. God, with the Ghana card, once you put your fingers on the gadget, your name and everything comes. Is that what they are afraid of? If they are not afraid of that, why would they be kicking against a policy that will aid or help all political parties to ensure that your investment, nobody will shortchange you in the supply chain? So, just like they did with the finance minister, just like they have been doing around, it is a face-saving situation. And you know, some of them too want people to hear that they are around because the NDC is going through election cycle. Most of them know if they don't take it, they will lose their seats. So they just have to shake the system to let people know that we are also parliamentarians. But the Ghanaian, the NDC members must know that this current crop of MPs, if they were having any opportunity of going for primaries, they must not retain more than half of them. For they are a total waste of our time in this country. I'll end it here.
Thank you. Thank you. Kofi in East Lagos said the president used Sikam Pedide in the wrong context. The phrase literally means that money show off by itself and does not need to be announced or boasted about. For example, if someone is wealthy, he does not need to boast about it. His way of life, clothes, shoes, house, car, etc. will show off his wealth. The president's explanation that where there is chaos and noise, you will not find money is not correct. That's Kofi in East Lagos' interpretation.
That one has been diffused by the fact that when you go to Laboni and cantonments, because of the absence of the money, they have money there. You come to Adalta or Doko and then Kusukura and those places. Yeah. The money is not there. So you should understand.
Sena, please, let me ask this question to Solo. If India, China, and even Hungary, which is a member of EU, are buying cheap fuel from Russia, why can't the MPP government also buy our fuel from Russia to reduce the hardship they put us on? They prefer Abu Dhabi.
Well, I was at the lost when Solo was speaking. Solo telling us that the EC is MPP.
Is that what the impression you got?
Yes, that's the impression I got when you spoke. Look, it is the EC that presented the CI. Whatever issues have been raised, it's towards the EC and not the MPP. I mean, clearly, you have given yourself out saying that the MPP will rise to the occasion. What it means basically is that you are the ones behind the EC promoting that particular law. Now, what is the basis of what we are talking about? It's identification. All that we are talking about is identification. The EC process of registering equally captures our biometric, isn't it? Please. And on the day of voting, you go through a process of verification. Would that change if we use the Ghana card? Would that change? Again, with the registration of our SIM, I'm even scared that after capturing all our biometrics, with the data sitting with government, I am asked to walk into telco A, telco B, and then again have my biometrics captured. For what? I thought that with the information sitting with NI, that can easily be shared, so that when I go to anybody, all I need to do, or the process I need to be taken through, will be a process of verification, and not to recapture my biometrics. The capturing of my biometrics by the telcos, are they going to sit at the same place, on the same database? Then that will be duplication. If not, then it means that my biometrics are sitting somewhere else, which I don't know. And I need to know. So this process of saying that the parent or the source document for both gaining a passport and having registered on the national identification system, all the source documents has their parents' document being birth certs, which actually indicates that I am a Ghanaian, to be able to gain access to owning a passport. And equally, I will need a guarantor or a passport to actually gain a Ghana card or ECOWAS, whatever. Now, both of these documents, to acquire them, you need birth certificate or a passport. And then someone comes up and says that, take all that out. I will not deal with the passports. I will not deal with the birth certificate. I will only deal with the national identification card. This is a very card that if you have to gain one today or own one today, you have to pay for it. And we say we don't know that. So what are we saying? Solo is telling us today that the NPP agrees to a policy direction that excludes people who are legitimate to be registered as voters. But because they cannot afford the process or gain access to the national identification card, they should be excluded from voting and expressing their God-given mandate. As opposed to someone who has gone on to take an action to say that, look, let's include other sources and our other factors in the registration of voters. The mother law, which is the Constitution, the mother law, which is the Constitution, has no knowledge of national identification card. Has no knowledge of national identification card. Anything contrary to that law is null and void. Why are we sitting here talking about this? If not for the hypocrisy, sheer greed of people who think they know it all, then I don't see why we should even have wasted time on this issue in this country. What are we talking about? We don't know that people have to pay 500 cedis to gain a national identification card? Don't we know that people who have registered several months have not received their cards? And they have to commute for several months from their homes to the offices of the national identification. And yet, they have not received. So for those people who have registered, who are actually on the system, who when they attempt to do a new registration, they will be blocked. Unlike Aisha One also, who wasn't blocked. How are we supposed to ensure that they got or they have the opportunity to come and register and vote? No one has a right to exclude those persons. And that is why the minority would have to take it up. And it is the responsibility of the so-called majority to wake up early and be part of this. Not to wait. Not to wait when the horses have bolted from the stables and come up like this event of sacking the finance minister. Later in the day, you come up and say, we are 86 people. We want to have him out. Which I don't believe by the laws is going to be out. Even if the censorship is passed. Because the president will still keep him there.
Thank you. Thank you. Kwesi Akwa in the UK says, after the end of the... Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think I was reading something that was actually meant for me. Okay, this one is from Wisdom Achu says, Solo, talk about what is happening now. People are hungry. If you are satisfied, then you say that you are satisfied. People are hungry. Well, that's one of our listeners.
People are hungry.
Yes, people are hungry. That if you are satisfied, say so.
No, I sympathize with you.
Satisfied.
I sympathize with you.
Beatrice.
Sena, in the first submission, I did make a point that the government does not seem to have any reason to solve the situation we are in, because their primary concern is about breaking the eight. It's about winning the next election and not managing the economy. And so even after the 2020 election, even before the government could kickstart its policy on what it thinks it can do in the post-COVID economy, they came out with the slogan, breaking the eight. Some way, somehow, I think that slogan was a curse on us, because then fuel broke the eight, the dollar broke the eight, our banks broke the eight, and everybody is just breaking anything. Today, fuel is even breaking 23, the dollar is breaking 15, and everywhere we are being broken. So what the MPP is doing with the CI is basically to consolidate their corruption, to say that much as we have mismanaged the economy, much as there is a legitimacy crisis on our hands, and much as a lot of young people are yearning and saying that Nanado must resign, Dr. Bawumia must come out of the rat hole and resign, the economic management team should be dissolved, and cabinets should be changed, they are concerned about how to escape accountability and how not to account for the corruption, the naked thievery, and sometimes the very scary nature in which they flaunt the state resources they've captured for themselves. And so the only way they can do this is to have a former patron of TESCON, who happened to be one of the commissioners of the Electoral Commission, aided by the Electoral Commissioner herself, Madame Jane Mensah, to do what they are doing. Because, Sena, it beats my imagination that the argument of the MPP, and for that matter, their agents, the EC, is that they want to end the guarantor system. And so to end the guarantor system, they need the Ghana card to do that. But sometimes the MPP should credit all of that with a little bit of intelligence. Sometimes maybe because you guys think you're not so intelligent, some people are more intelligent than you. How do you use a system that uses the guarantor system? I got my Ghana card through the guarantor system, because at the time I was going to make the Ghana card, I had left my passport and birth cert and everything at home. So I just got two friends of mine who had the Ghana card to come and guarantee for me. So how do you use the card that I got from the guarantor system to say that you are preventing another person from getting a voter ID from the guarantor system? So what they are doing is just this. If you look at the data from the NIA, the NIA says that they have issued 15.9 million cards. If you look at the breakdown of the cards they've issued, the places which are perceived to be the stronghold of the MPP, they have more cards. So if you go to the voter region, much as people are registering, they don't have the cards. If you go to all the swing regions that we know, Greater Accra and all the other, and even many of the northern regions, they have registered the people, but they don't have the cards issued to them. So in excess of 2 million cards have not been issued. So if you capture the data of people and you don't issue the cards, where do they go and use it to acquire the voter's ID card? And let me say that if you look at the checkered history of the MPP from the Dankwabuzia tradition, some way, somehow, at some points, they rob in Nombo if it pleases them. If you look at their tradition, they've always had issues with who should be citizens and who should not be citizens. Some way, somehow, they perceive some people to be citizens and who not to be citizens. This is the government that is redefining what citizenship is. In the most shameless manner, in the run-up to the 2020 election, If you could not speak Twi in Ghana and you were coming in the Volta region, you were not a Ghanaian. If you could not speak Twi, so they are redefining citizenship. That for them, it is not enough that by the laws of Ghana, a parent should be a citizen. They are using their own measure of who should be a citizen. And even with the Ghana card, the breakdown and the demographics show you how they are issuing the cards. And I will want to call on the minority that what has happened in the past should be in the past. But this specific CI should not be part. In fact, it should not even be laid, because the moment it is laid, then Parliament technically has no hand in dealing with the CI by procedural requirement. So they should not even lay it. And I'm very happy about the Speaker sending the signal that he will not allow it. Because, Sena, come what may, you cannot use the Ghana card to rationalize and explain our hardship. And so, even in your Ashanti region, your president is being booed. Now, this is the only booable and hootable president. Yeah. Anywhere he goes, this president is booable and hootable. So even in your strongholds, in Chebi when you went the last time, you saw it. The president is being booed. The MPP is the most unpopular party. Now when you meet the MPP members, they will tell you, oh, now I'm not really into politics. I don't see what the politicians do. Now they are neutral. See, so now when I'm sitting on air, the people who send me messages and say fire more, they are more MPP than anybody, because they feel they cannot talk. So allow me. The point I am making is that this CI is just calculated to aid the MPP run away from accountability. And I would also want to send a signal to the MPP that they should not tickle themselves and laugh and assume that, like they use the military, like they use the police in 2020, they should go to the barracks. Why has the president increased the salaries of the military men by 65%? Why when you go to the police station to do bail and they see you, the enthusiasm and the reception they give you, and even the information they give you, knowing you are a communicator of the NDC, should tell them that now you will see that when you start and you say fire, nobody is firing because we are all buying the fuel. Hitherto, judges could not even speak. Now they are also buying the fuel at the same price. They are also buying the 25 kilos for the 1,000 cedis and the freight oil for the 1,000 cedis. So now the hardship, we are no longer politicizing it. And so let them not think that they can hide under the CI and disenfranchise people, because they should, and their own national security internal post is informing them. Their own national security research is telling them something, that the Ghanaian people are tired, fed up, disappointed, and some way, somehow, this is the first time everybody is calling the president to resign. We've had governments have their challenges and everything. This is the first time you have some unanimity among the citizens that the president and the vice president should resign. This is the first time you've had people come up with those suggestions. So I am telling the MPP that no amount of political machination, no amount of controlling the EC, and thank God that God knew that if they gave them any outright majority, they would have passed the Japa, another PDS scandal, the CI, this current CI they want to lay. But God is exposing them, because even God, even as we are Christian, when we also pray, we pray that, Father, even though we have wicked leaders, have mercy on us. And so even this one, God will intervene. So this CI, the minority should not allow it to be laid. And even if it means resisting it with everything, it has to be resisted.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm David.
Thank you very much. Before I go to Mr. Pratt, just one message to read. This one, Sena, the economy was down and out before COVID and Russia-Ukraine war. It is only that we were not guided by two biblical cautions, Matthew 12:24-25, where we only built our house on sand rather than rock. And when the storm came, it fell flat. And also Proverbs 6:6, where the ant prepares in the dry season to avoid fetching food during the rainy season? Mr. Pratt.
Well, I think it's a very simple matter. I mean, 3 years ago, we heard the Electoral Commission argue fervently that it did not want to use the biometric data which had been acquired by the NIA. And as a consequence, we gave the Electoral Commission some funds for it to develop its own biometric data. So why are we here today? Why are we here today? That's all. I have nothing more to add. Nothing more to add. If you look at NIA cards issued so far, they are far less than the number of people who voted in the last election. Should there be an argument? There should be no argument about these matters. In any case, you use your passport to acquire the NIA card. If the passport is not sufficient proof of nationality, then all of us who acquire the NIA cards, our nationality is in doubt. Look, let's stop this Jaguar Joker business and get on with this nation. Finish.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I have enough time to just go through just one or two messages on Facebook. I think I've lost that. Just one or two messages, then we can call it a day.
Just before you go.
Okay.
You know, next Thursday at the Freedom Center, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., there'll be a public forum on the crisis in education.
Crisis in education.
Crisis in education, you know, at the Freedom Center. In fact, now every Thursday, 5 to 7, there's a platform at the Freedom Center for discussing national issues. And next Thursday, we'll be discussing the crisis in education. So everybody is invited.
In case you do not know, one of the topics we're supposed to discuss was what is happening at the colleges of education. It started at the various senior high schools. In fact, they are denying it constantly, but every day something like that comes up. Dining halls where they are saying, when you are coming, bring your own bread, bring your own sugar, sometimes bring your own meat or fish or whatever, because they are running out. And the monies that are supposed to be coming to them are not coming to them in the quantities that in the volumes that they expect. So it's not helpful to a lot of senior high schools. And then as we speak, the 3 teacher unions at the basic level and senior high school level are on strike. They are against the man who has been made the Director General of Ghana Education Service. They indicated that the government says it's negotiating. They say they have nothing to negotiate. Just get him out. He's not supposed to have any business there. So they are on strike currently because of the man who has been named as Director General of Ghana Education Service. Another matter that will become another issue that we have to deal with subsequently. And about the Ghana card, in case you do not know, I like our Vice President nowadays. He only announces things that make him laugh. And he announced, I think recently, that children that are born, I think starting the day he made and will be issued the Ghana card. Nowadays, if the thing will not make our Vice President happy and smiley, he doesn't talk about it. Well, we are done for today's show. Thank you very much for making time to join us this morning. Let me say a big thank you to Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr., who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. And a big thank you to Ni Yaboy Annan. He's a financial analyst and getting closer to me. Solomon Owusu. Alan Chamantin campaign team. Yeah. And sitting right to my left. Sitting right to my left is Beatrice, who is a private legal practitioner and a member of the National Democratic Congress. My name is Sena Nombo. Let me say a big thank you to the various stations that picked us this morning. Shine FM in Akachi on 96.9, Hills FM in Adaklo on 91.7, Niwasi Radio in Ketekrachi is on 89.7 FM, Sela Radio in Dabala on 97.1, Diamond FM Tamale 93.7, Bawa Radio Yendi 106.5, Radio Kitawon Saboba on 95.7, Banya FM in Elmina 105.7, Cape FM in Cape Coast is on 93.3, Global FM in Ho is on 105.1, There's Volta 1 TV and also Zeps FM 95.9 in megahertz in Zebila. True FM is on 92.5 in Adeso and Lamaya FM 89.1 FM in Tripoli. So, but do not miss that conversation on crisis in education at the Freedom Center. Coming Thursday, 5 to 7, that discussion will be on. Be a part of that. We've been trying to have such discussions on this show, but it looks like the economy always keeps taking over because it's the most important thing to talk about now. We are back same time next week with another edition of the Mother of All Talk Shows, live on TV, on Pan-African TV, and of course live on Radio Gold. Thank you very much for making time.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.
Truly African.